We'll call the meeting to order at 7:01. And let me quickly run over our board norms, which are to maintain our focus, communicate respectfully, be present, keep the board productive and effective, and respect the agenda. And any changes to the agenda?
I do not have any changes.
Okay. And any, I'm sorry, oh. And any correspondence of?
I do not have any correspondence.
Okay. And members of the public, if there's anything that you do not see on the agenda, please let us know now and we can discuss whatever you would like to. Otherwise, we will wait till we get to that point in the agenda and speak to it then. All right, seeing nothing, moving on. Student reports. Let's see if we have anybody out there. I don't see anybody. Okay.
Ball.
Is that all
Ball
right?
game away.
Away.
Okay,
You need a student report?
Yeah.
sure. Johnny on the spot.
Okay.
Go ahead.
A lot of sports games have been being canceled due to sickness. Though there are a lot of things still happening, some practices are still happening. Middle school is going to things. I believe they had a track meet today. The theater program is preparing for Hats Off, which will be on June 6th. It's a Sunday, whatever that first Sunday is. 5th, my bad. There's a show at 2, show at 7. Music program is preparing for Trills and Thrills, which is hopefully still happening. And the pop concert, which is June 2nd. And the Dingers for Dylan was moved to May 19th.
Yes.
Right.
And the pep rally was also moved to that day. It did not happen today. And I'm forgetting something. Give me a moment. Oh, and PBL we're going to be starting the final part next week. I think that covers mostly everything.
That's impressive.
Wow, Peter, very good from memory.
SBAC testing is happening. Sorry, I don't have to do that.
That's what I forgot.
That's not important to Peter.
The only year I have not had to do that, because my class has been screwed over many a times.
And when is that?
The next 2 weeks.
The next 2 weeks. Okay.
At times, mainly in the morning.
Gotcha.
Aren't you worried about SATs?
If I were taking them, I would have finished them. There was a session that just happened, including, AP tests. There is one tomorrow for the World History class, which is the one that's mainly for underclassmen, which is kind of cool. And then all the other AP tests, AP Calc, AP Lit, and AP US History have already happened. And this past weekend, there was an SAT block that I know some people attended.
Wow,
Awesome.
very impressive.
Busy.
It's
Any
not busy in the spring at all.
No, none whatsoever. Any questions for Peter? No.
Thanks for jumping in.
Thanks, Peter. All right, moving on to new business. Appoint West River Education District Treasurer.
So at our election, we did not have anybody that put their name on the ballot. We did have a write-in candidate who received the most votes, but not enough votes to cross the threshold where they could be appointed. The board chair and myself reached out to that individual to let them know if they were interested in being appointed the treasurer. They just needed to write a letter to the board. They were not interested in doing that. And so the backup to that is for the West River Education District to appoint the Director of Finance as your treasurer so that you actually have a treasurer. That doesn't change the fact that if somebody comes forward and writes a letter to the board, says I would like to be appointed, the board could consider that. But we do need to actually have a treasurer until that occurs. So it would be my recommendation that the board make a motion to appoint Lori Garland, the Director of Finance at the WCSU, to take the West River Education District Treasurer until such time as the board could find an appointee or till the next election.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, great. Discussion.
Does that create a conflict with oversight?
So we have an assistant treasurer and we have a payroll person that they wrote. So we have 3 people that check it. She's checking it now. So it would have, when you have another treasurer, it's a 4th set of eyes. So we still have 3.
And the intention would be if somebody did step forward, we would then just reassign that position?
So if somebody wrote a letter tonight, we would put it back on the agenda, board would discuss it, you would appoint it, and then you would reverse this decision that's happening tonight. That's why in the motion that was just made, it's only until you appoint somebody else or until there's another election.
Put it as interim.
Excellent, thank you.
You bet.
Great question. Any other discussion? Seeing none, let's see, who do we have out there? Do we have Joe?
Joe and Sarah.
Sarah, okay. Since we do have a combination, let's go ahead and start with the folks out in Zoom. How do you vote, Joe?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Drew?
Aye.
Crystal?
Aye.
Lindsay? And I also vote in favor. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, thank you. All right, and I see Bob out there. Bob, are you prepared to?
No, we have,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, it's okay. No, we have Samantha
I'm
Harlow here.
presenting.
Oh, okay, he will listen in.
Yes.
Got it. Feel better, Bob.
All right, so Sam, I'm going to give you hosting so that you can.
Okay.
Okay. All right. You should be good to go to be able to present. Whilst Ms. Harlow is setting that up, Samantha Harlow is our PBL coach coordinator. And she will be presenting on PBL, which is project-based learning occurring at Leland and Grant.
All right. That's Bob looking off into the distance. Just kidding. Yeah, so as Bill said, I'm Samantha Harlow. I'll be the project-based learning coordinator next year. Right now I'm the SBAC coordinator, so that's why I know about SBACs. So the purpose of this presentation is to both inform people about what project-based learning is, to tell you a little bit about what we've done so far. This has been a multi-year process, and what we see, what we propose doing in the future with project-based learning. So we started with, what do we want our students to have? What do we want our students to get out of their time at Leland and Gray? And these are coming up more slowly than on my screen. All the things that employers have said they want from employees, that colleges are looking for, that, high functioning, adults possess. So collaboration, flexibility, problem solving, communication, integrative thinking, teamwork, positivity, all the buzzwords. So how do we give them these skills? How do we have them practice this in their education? We've decided that one way of doing it is through project-based learning. So broad definition, and I'll just read this, is that project-based learning is a teaching method in which students gain knowledge and skills by working for an extended period of time to investigate and respond to an authentic, engaging, and complex question, problem, or challenge. And project-based learning is not new. I mean, this is how medical schools have been teaching for decades. You're presented with something that's a real world, authentic, complicated project, problem. There we go. Sorry, there's a delay happening here. And then you figure it out, right? You're given the tools, you're given the support, you're given the opportunity and the time to think through the problem, and then you can apply all your skills from different areas to solve that. So the faculty laughs about this when we put up the gold standard of PBL because we've talked about it so much. But the gold standard of PBL is you start with a challenging problem or question. You have sustained inquiry, so a long enough period of time to really dive into whatever your problem is. That it's authentic, right? It's a real world problem. It's not manufactured for the classroom. A huge piece of it is student voice and choice, so that students are, have a say in what it is they're looking into, so that they're bought into it. It's something that they care about. That's something, especially now, in the post or during COVID time, that we really need student engagement. So that's huge. Again, there's enough time that there's an opportunity for reflection, for critique and revision during the process, because we all know that you're not going to do it perfectly the first time. And that there's a real public product at the end. So that you're taking a real world problem and you're not just giving a PowerPoint in class, that you are, finding the experts, presenting to the school board, that you're, have some sort of public presentation of what your work is. And so it, again, has a little more weight to it, a little more authenticity. So why project-based learning as a learning technique, and why here? Number one, it's personalized learning, which is everything that we are moving towards. Gives students more options. That's another thing, that as a small school, this is a way for us to give our students many more options and more choice in what their program of studies is. Again, takes on authentic and real world problems, so has real implications. And again, especially in this time when we've been separated for so long, that this is something that really fosters collaboration, engagement with the community, engagement with your peers. Part of this presentation, I'll talk about what the student feedback was from when we did this in the fall, and you'll see it's just completely about working with peers who they hadn't worked with before, realizing that they could really reach out to adults in the community and feel comfortable. So that's a huge one. All right. Do I need to hit it again? Okay, so this is, we'll see this slide a couple of times, the PBL long-term vision. So we started back in 2018, sort of 2018 to 2020, with a sort of pilot program using PBL. It was the Senior PBL Academy, and students, it was a course co-taught, and students, it was PBL. Students picked what their topic was. They had the whole, I can't remember if it was a whole year or just a semester, but an extended period of time to be working on it, and they had a public presentation at the end. This year, what we've been doing is implementing this in a broader scope, so for all the high school students. And we've taken Wednesdays to have this sort of longer chunk of time to do PBL work with all the students. And we've had 4 different modules, we called them. The second module and the 4th module are the ones that are really truly PBL. The first one and the 3rd one were sort of class-based work, grade level based work, I should say. And we've done a lot of PD for the staff about what project-based learning is and how to implement it in our classrooms effectively. So this is what this year has looked like. These are grade level activities was the first module. The second module, which we'll talk about more, were staff designed PBLs, so ones that the teachers had come up with. Right now, we finished up our grade level activities, and we're in between. We're about to start module 4 next week. And these are ones that students had input in designing, or at least in the topics. So we're getting closer to having true, voice and choice in this for the students, but it takes a little while. So in the fall, it's not liking my graphics. So in the fall, we had a bunch of different topics. There was a group that looked at the dress code at school, and actually we've implemented a new dress code. Probably can't tell the difference, but don't tell the students that. We had a segment that was about what's your why, which was trying to get students to talk more about the things that they're really engaged in that might not be part of their everyday life at school, and to get other people involved. There was one that sort of broke apart into a couple of different topics that looked at how Vermont as a state is changing. So it took some people were looking at ecology, some people were looking at the ski industry and the effects of climate change. And then another one that that broke apart into a couple of different things was a community makeover. Students were tasked with finding a place in our local surroundings that could use some sprucing up, or an area that wasn't being used to its full potential. And students had, this is the one I did, so I know the most about it, really awesome ideas for what to do for the green. There were students who wanted to make a coffee cart out front, and a really great idea for redoing the basketball court, which is already happening. So, and we presented to like local architects and designers and the grounds, buildings and grounds people here. And I mean, the students were just like electrified by having these adults listen to them and like really take them seriously. And it was amazing to watch, absolutely amazing. So what did the students say about it? They don't always say the same things that we do. All right. So these are direct quotes from surveys and discussions that we had afterwards. A lot about, I got to learn how to communicate with people I've never talked to before. The hands-on approach made it something other than a lecture, right? The sort of change up from the classroom was a positive. Having a public audience. I learned how to politely argue with people. That's a skill we need these days. Having Zooms with professionals and experts was really exciting. And some of the challenges that they identified, looking through these, right, trying not to be shy. At first, I wasn't sure what I could contribute, right? Some of those sort of insecurities. I don't like talking in front of people, staying focused, staying engaged, being on time, typical like high school challenge. But when you really dig into these and look through them, what were the challenges? They were learning clear and effective communication. They were learning about creative and practical problem solving. They were learning about, this is really slow, sorry, responsible and involved citizenship. And the last one is self-direction, which are the transferable skills that are graduation requirements. These are some more things that they said. So when it all boils down to it, communication, I learned how to talk with professionals. I learned research and project planning skills, learned how to be flexible, again, important. Budgeting and realistic limitations. I think that came from my group because the basketball court group learned a lot about budgeting. How to work in groups more effectively. So we took our successes for Module 2, which was in the fall, and now in our planning for Module 4, which we're about to start, we had collected this feedback. We generated potential topics, again, based on what they had said in those meetings. Students ranked their top choices, and then these modules, or these different projects were shaped by the staff having had that student input. So it's still not totally perfect in terms of student led, but we're getting closer to it. There we go. So the ones for Module 4 that are starting, so we have stream ecology, cooking and baking, STEM challenges, where hopefully they're building rockets, but it's up to them. Game design, design and plan a trip abroad, which feeds into a course that we're actually offering next year. That's a social studies class where it's cultural studies, and we're looking at England. And then part of it is that students are researching a topic, and then we're planning the trip to go, and they'll be the tour guides at whatever sort of the location is that they've researched. So that's really exciting. That's also the one that I'm doing. We have a group that's doing film production, mural design, building and maintaining trails, and a group also that's a student-designed one. The design and plan a trip abroad was a student proposal. That didn't come from the staff. And the refreshing co-curriculars also is a student-directed one because they want more students involved in co-curriculars and athletics and music and what other things that we can bring in. So this is what we're doing starting next week. Peter, what one are you in? Do you remember?
Yeah, I got put in the trails one
You're the trails one? Yeah.
because the other two that I selected.
Didn't run. Yeah.
Yup.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll see. We'll report back on how these turn out, or ask your students if you have a student here. So this is what we're proposing for next year. So again, this is where we've been. This is what we're proposing. If this slide will work. We can just go to this one. So we're proposing, again, that we use Wednesdays, but that we're moving it into full semester instead of these 4 broken up modules. So that gives us a little more time for engagement. That was one of the pieces of feedback, was that it was too short. I mean, you can't do PBL in 4 sessions that are 70 minutes. So these are much longer sessions. We have 12 sessions. And again, these will be similar to Module 4, ones that students have had input in, and some staff guidance as well. And for next year, the middle school will be involved. So we're taking another step, involving the middle school. And for their first semester, they'll have a high school teacher paired up with a middle school teacher. So there'll be that collaboration, and some high school students will be the sort of TAs that will help out with the middle schoolers. So hopefully that'll work, and in the middle school we'll get a better feel for what this is all about. Winter activities hopefully is staying, and then we'll have the same thing in the spring. So first semester 2, 12 sessions of 100 minutes each. So how are we going to do this? This is what we're proposing, that on Wednesdays, every Wednesday, we have a late start, the way we currently do on PBL Wednesdays. But to add consistency to the calendar, because it's been making everybody nuts that we have a different schedule every day, hopefully to have this late start consistently gives teachers time to do the professional development that we already do on early release days, and to do more of the planning for these PBLs, because they do take time to plan, even though it's very student driven. Have the PBL block in there for 100 minutes. Purposely bumped it up against advisory and lunch so that if there's a field trip or something needs to extend, that there's a little wiggle room in there for groups. And also it lines up with the middle school time, so that again, there can be that sort of cross-pollination. Maybe there'll be some eventually that are open to middle school age and high school age. It just gives us a lot of flexibility. So what have we already done to make this happen? Well, like I said, the staff has already completed 80 hours of professional development with UVEI. We by the end of this year, we'll have done these 2 4-week sessions. And, whoops, keeps doing that to me. There's the PBL coordinator, that's me. So there's somebody in place to help build the program, hopefully over the next 2 years. And Bob wanted me to include a little bit about what I'm supposed to be doing next year, since that's ESSER funding and not through your budget. Helping teachers plan, think about how to incorporate PBL into their regular classes, give people resources, help the PBL groups make connections with outside resources, community partnership, community showcases, publicity, and securing funding where it's available and appropriate, making sure that we're making this inclusive for all of our students, and just generally helping with curriculum development. So that's what I'll be up to. But what else do we need to make this happen? This is where you guys come in to make it possible for us to have these late starts. We need a second round of buses for 24 days. So that's gonna cost just a little bit. And then when the district has early release days, we'll need to run buses for a regular release time. So that's 6 days when we don't line up with the elementary schools in this new proposal. So again, here's where we've been, here's where we're going. The 5-year plan, if it will come up, nope, is to incorporate PBL into the regular curriculum, maybe like what we're running next year with this PBL class where they're designing the trip. Maybe have classes that are designated as PBLs instead of having it sort of pulled out on Wednesdays. We want seniors maybe to complete an independent capstone for graduation, so every student will have done this sort of independent work. It's really, as it says here, a vehicle both for transferable skills and also for credit recovery because they're so flexible and can be really tailored to the student. This can be a way for students also to recover any content standards that they might be missing for graduation. So using PBL gives us a lot of flexibility, gives the students a lot of choice, and it is personalized learning. I mean, it is what we say we're wanting to do. So there we are. Questions? Maybe. Whoop, not that one. Questions? Yes, sir.
Are there any of these subjects really challenging to the point where it's almost impossible to do? I mean, the trip to abroad, I mean, that's one way, but...
You mean like have students design things that are so challenging we can't actually do them?
Yeah, I mean, is there like a point where maybe it gets too, like they got too far?
I mean, hopefully we're able to guide them before it gets to that point, but I mean, the limiting factors, as with everything, is time and money, so.
Yeah. I know I tried to design a game in computer programming and it didn't work
Yeah,
in the end. And I'm like,
right, I mean, that's part of real life. So yeah, not every PBL is going to come out with a public product that like blows your mind. Right?
Yeah.
Some of them are going to be like, so we tried this and it still didn't work and we tried that, and because it's life. But hopefully we're giving them the skills to then deal with that failure and move on.
Yeah, programming is fail fast and move on.
yeah.
Yeah, clearly.
I was wondering if I saw a lot of comments from students, but if there was staff comments about, do they feel like this is effective? Do they see a difference the rest of the time? Is it like roping students in that then when there's like actual lecture time that they're more engaged, or are they feeling like there's no way we have enough training for this? We're in over our heads. I signed up to be a classroom teacher and this PBL stuff is crazy. I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, having the professional development has been really helpful in terms of building people's confidence and their, familiarity with what PBL is. So I think that, asking somebody last year versus asking somebody this year how they feel about it, people are much more confident and understand what they're doing. And I think change is always scary. So, there are always going to be those sort of doubts that the staff have. But I think on the whole, it's been really positive because we've seen like how positive it's been for the students. I mean, there are kids who don't usually come to school who would come on a Wednesday because they wanted to be there for their PBL. And seeing that, and it does then, trickle down and they'll start coming to school a little more often. But yeah, ideally having it more embedded in the curriculum we'll see more of that, buy-in. And the staff is on board. We wouldn't be moving forward without them, so without us.
Lindsay, this is Bob. The other thing I could add to that is that the model of professional development that we followed this year with ESEE, which is the Upper Valley Educators Institute out of Hanover, is that we had whole group instruction around sort of the tenets of project-based learning, but then we also had small group coaching with the groups of teachers that were working together to plan a PBL. The instructor actually met with them individually to talk specifically about theirs and do coaching. So that also was the approach we took, because it did make teachers feel a little bit better and had the opportunity for them to really, target questions that they had to an expert, and then jump back into the team planning time to develop something. So I think that did help. But like with anything, as Sam pointed out at the beginning, people were very, very nervous about it. But as she also pointed out, this is a adventure that we started 6 years ago, really, my first year as principal, when we did a design thinking experience where we brought in someone to guide our staff with a design thinking exploration, which was trying to answer the question of how do we make Leland and Gray a highly personalized school in a way that can best take advantage of the reforms in EQS and multiple pathways law and that kind of thing. So this was really the avenue that we as a staff landed on back then, about how this was the best way to sort of take our small size and use it as an advantage and personalize for everybody. And so that's where it originally came out of. And so the staff has been, particularly staff that's been around for a little bit, have been going down this journey for a number of years.
Follow up. Is that collaboration with the Upper Valley, whatever, is that continuing, or does that end, or is it like all the way done, or is there still like phone a friend?
Yeah, so we're going to continue with that coaching model through this last module during those late arrival Wednesdays. That's when the teachers are meeting together to plan. And we're developing a plan for next year as well to lead some work, but with Sam on board, that will be probably reduced as far as what it's going to be. But the other thing that Sam didn't mention is that she's also going to be exploring how PBL is working in other places, setting up site visits to really connect with other schools that are doing this more broadly, particularly small schools, and try to understand how we can take their successes as well and learn from the things that didn't work out well. So that's another piece of what she'll be doing. So yeah, there's sort of a combination of us sort of weaning ourselves from the UVI and keeping it internal, and using Sam's expertise.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I sound like Jeff warmed over.
You sound wonderful.
Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah.
Okay, question. You have a project. You have one student who excels that's working in that project and one who doesn't. How do you make that all work?
Well, I mean, if they're working within the same topic, you mean?
Yeah.
They could have designed different projects. I mean, with the guidance of, the teacher, to make sure that we're setting the goals where they should be for each student. So that's part of the personalized part of PBL, is that you can scale it, you can differentiate more easily.
Just for each student's needs.
Yeah.
Just as an example of that, during the dress code research that was done in the late fall, there were some kids that were researching what other schools do. There were some kids that were researching some legal implications. There were some kids that were interviewing people and getting survey results. I mean, different kids were doing different elements of it. So they could typically always find something that they found an interest in within the context of the project.
Yeah, so even within a group project, there are different roles.
Go ahead.
So this is funded through federal money. Currently, what's the plan to fund the project after the money is gone?
So Bob doesn't have to talk again. That's why we did it for 2 years, so that we could at least have some data to provide for the board when we build a budget in December of next year. So we'll have this year's data, we'll have first semester's data. So we hope to make an evidence-based argument that a year and a half in advance, that this is the type of learning our students want, this is the type of our learning that we want for our students, this is the investment that is necessary to make, but we want to be able to have enough of a runway to actually make that argument with evidence instead of just theory. So it'll be a discussion where we'll be having in December, hopefully, with the type of evidence that makes it a decision that is easy for the board to invest in.
So this would be a local expense in the future, or is there any role looking for grant funding moving forward? Is that something we're also looking at, or?
Oh, absolutely, but, the floor is local. But of course, we're gonna, expand our opportunities to look at grants. It's one of the reasons we have a coordinator that can tap into other schools that are doing this. How are they funding it? Is it a mixture of local and grant? So we're gonna have to pursue that path, but you're exactly right. We have 2 years of funding and federal funding, and we hope to have an evidence-based argument of how we can fund it for the future.
What is the annual cost on the program?
That I'll have to ask Bob to jump in on. Bob?
So I don't have the dollar amount off the top of my head, but really, as far as the ESSER funding, is that what you're talking about, or funding like the projects themselves?
Just the total dollar amount that we're putting into
The 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to find that out, but the bulk of that is just salary and benefits for the coordinator. We didn't budget specifically money for projects. We're going to utilize department existing supplies and things like that to draw off of. I think that's something we'll want to talk about moving forward as the kids get more involved and figure out what kinds of costs that we're running into. But even some of the projects that they did in the fall, they were thinking about things and designing things. They weren't actually like building the things. So some of the improvement projects that they had come up with, they were really just pitching ideas. They didn't actually complete the project. Some of that was time based and it's money based, but the other part of it is like the creating it and thinking through it are two different things. So we're not limited to just have to do every single project that we really come up with. But I guess I'd have to get back to you on the financial element of that. To be honest, I don't remember off the top of my head what the ESSER amount was for the 2 years.
I mean, I can just give you a guideline. Average teacher salary plus benefits hovers around 80 to 85,000. So if you look at 2 years, or 85,000 per year would be my best guess. I'm going to guess it probably ranges right in there.
And then the $9,000 in busing that we're being asked for
would be in addition to that 80 to 85. So I think 100,000 would probably be a reasonable estimate per year, without, as what Bob said, as we dive into this with kids.
And I think the busing, to be honest, I think we can find that amount in the existing budget. I don't think we have to, for this coming school year anyway, so we have to necessarily allocate anything specifically. I think we can find that amount there. So we really just want more about having their support that, if we're going to be going to a system where the entire student body, grades 6 through 12, is coming in later, 1 day a week, every week, with the exception of winter activity days, that's something that you guys can get behind and support so that, we're able to, say to the community that the board supported this endeavor. One of the things we knew was going to be a problem was the busing. We know that particularly the younger kids, if parents leave for work, the bus stop is a mile away or whatever, like we were worried about how that could go. We talked about first doing smaller bus runs, like bigger group stop runs to save money. But then in the end, we really decided that we needed the full repeat of all the bus runs so that families, and particularly younger kids, could get their kids to the bus, even if the parents had left for work. So, but those are the kinds of more the concerns that I have about, support within the community, is making sure that the community values and understands what we're doing, and knowing that you guys value and understand what we're doing.
Thanks, Bob. I didn't notice, but was one of the projects grant writing?
That's a bullet point in my job description, yes.
Good bullet point.
In the public,
Oh, yeah, of course.
the board member.
I was just wondering if there's still going to be like a study hall kind of option for anybody who needs to utilize it, like happened this year?
Yeah, we haven't gotten that far into logistics, but we do recognize, again, like in that situation where you have a young kid who maybe you live a mile and a half from a bus stop and you literally can't get them there at that later start time. But yes, they could come in the earlier bus and we would find a spot. Our hope is that that's going to be a very small number of people who take advantage of that, because we have to staff the supervision of that, and the teachers are all in this planning time. So we're using other staff, non-teaching staff, to do that. So we're hoping to minimize that. But yes, that's always a possibility.
I am concerned when you start pushing this toward the middle school that, I mean, parents got to go to work. Can't have latchkey kids. You know, the bus stop thing, you know, I'm going to ship off my daughter early, bring her down here. You can entertain her for an hour and a half and breakfast.
Oh, I didn't
Bob.
think about how that affects,
Yeah.
how does that affect student meals?
Yeah, well, we still have breakfast either when they're here early or when they're here on what the late start time would be. That wouldn't affect the meal situation at all. But yeah, I do hear your concern there. And like I said, I think if we had an opportunity to have those kids hosted for the ones that had to come early, we just wanted to give the opportunity for those that we didn't want it to be an economically discriminatory type practice where some kids who can have parents drive them at 9 and some kids who can't. You know, we wanted to be equity in how we approached it. So that's why we went with the second bus run.
Was there any thought, I'm sure there was thought put into this, but maybe you can talk a little bit about why it needs to be a late arrival instead of an early release day? Just that.
Yes, quite a bit of discussion about that actually, and that had to do with co-curricular activities after school. If there was an early release, then kids would have to leave and then come back. And we figured that'd be a bigger hardship on parents than it would be to have it in the second bus run.
Good call.
Good answer.
Very good answer.
We've thought about this a lot.
I'll get you in 1 second, yeah. So I think this program is great, and I've had one student so far, like you said earlier, wants to go on Wednesday, like couldn't wait because he had that and he knew he had it. And we talked earlier about success, right? What have we determined would be the metrics of success for the program and for the school?
I think the two metrics for success are the two motivations for us doing this. One is about engagement. So as we came out of COVID, we knew that even in that first spring last year when the kids were back, even a couple days a week each, we knew that they were struggling to re-engage. Not with each other socially, that was not a problem. All sorts of social engagement, some of it good even. But the academic engagement was a struggle after being remote for so long. And so that was one of the main motivators for us in thinking about expanding the PBL Academy into something that would have a broader impact for every kid. And then the second reason has to do with the transferable skills. So you guys as a board have charged us with measuring for the purpose of graduation requirements and transferable skills as part of our proficiencies. And what we discovered through our academic coursework was that it was challenging to measure the transferable skills and the content area skills simultaneously for a lot of classroom teachers. It was just a struggle. So we really thought like, well, what if we started measuring the transferable skills in the PBL units? Because that's honestly, as Sam pointed out earlier in the presentation, that's the skills that kids are picking up through this. Yes, they're learning some content too, but the way that we're doing it was really focused on those employability things, and those are the transferable skills. So measuring those and having kids be able to graduate, and because we're scoring them, we can actually have metrics on how well they're doing, and what improvement looks like over time, things like that. So those are the two metrics that we'd be using.
Great, thanks, Bob. I'm going to jump out. You've been very patient.
That's all right. No, I come after the board. So.
No, that's okay.
Okay. Yeah. I'm Lyndall Bowl from Brookline. This is very impressive, and I love the emphasis on the student accomplishment of communicating and thinking and identifying the problems and then coming up with the programs. And you've got a great coordinator right here. I can hear it, right? So I wanted to ask if the issues that we're concerned with and why we're here could become part of this program in a very integrated way, not the racial inequity, the fiscal inequity, if as kids are identifying problems. And I'm hearing that you're trying to inculcate skills that would have them employable and function in the real world in a very good, and that's great for Leland and Gray kids. Could we take this, that's a big problem now, and I don't mean to separate it from the rest of the school, but to integrate it into this, if kids identify that as a problem, to handle it even do an internship with NAACP if the kid identifies that as a problem. You're looking for outside resources on how to handle that. It's just a thought that occurred as I was listening, because this is a wonderful program. And it seems just integrated. Our difficulties seem integrated into solutions here, or partial solutions. So
what I can tell you is that the sky is the limit on what the nature of the projects are. So wherever kids have interest, that's where the projects can be. Or as you point out, you can identify a problem to be solved and kids can come up with solutions. So that was kind of the dress code where that one grew out of. The kids were fighting about the dress code, and so we said, "Oh, you take a shot at it and you solve it," and so they did.
Thank you.
That was actually Bob speaking.
You got hands on Zoom, Craig Roach.
Craig. Okay. Go ahead, Craig.
I just want to take a little bit of time to introduce myself, Sam, and everybody else. Bob, even though I know you can't speak, the fact that you guys have mural design out there, I want to volunteer my services for you guys. If you were starting next week in mural design, that is certainly right up my alley. This is the kind of education that I absolutely love and adore, and I've always learned best from. Each year I go and teach a mural design, and actually as a guest speaker at Keene State College on the same premise. So I would be happy to be part of this if you have time for me, lead you through the process. Currently I'm working with Keene Housing to put up a community mural this week. So that includes, like, if you guys wanted to take a site visit to see what we're doing and go through the process, I just want to give you my services. And so that's it, but this sounds great. I love it. And I just wanted to make sure I was on board because this type of learning is just amazing. I'd love to help out.
Thanks so much, Craig.
I had another question.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
I've got so many questions. Sorry, I apologize. I was hoping you could talk a little bit about how this year went in terms of an impact on the regular learning. Was there still time to get stuff done? And if we're increasing next year, is there still going to be enough time doing like regular learning? I don't know how else to say that. But it's not even that. But yeah, just regular classroom learning. What's the impact on that? And I know there's already kind of some issue with like wind blocks is when band is and stuff like that. I'm wondering if there's the second part of that, still time for students that might need extra either remediation or enrichment.
Yeah, so I'm going to take that as really the two parts of that question are about what's it doing to the quantity of regular class time and what's it doing to the quantity of regular class time. So I would say this, that to answer the quantity one first, which is probably too early to tell. But since project-based learning is in a teaching methodology, with the theory is that this is going to be more and more embedded into what happens in classrooms. And so it's going to become a much more effective model because it's going to be done in throughout the classes. And a lot of teachers already do that. You've all been in school where you had projects and things like that. So this is really no different, but it's thinking about operating in a classroom environment from the standpoint of this is the norm. This is what I do all the time, rather than this is just like the project we're going to do at the end of the year. As far as the quantity of time goes, there was a slide, I think it looks like Sam has it up now. She did a study of the impact on seat time. And Sam, you want to just sort of just a quick overview of what you found?
Yes. There's not a huge impact. I mean, obviously there's give and take, like we're taking time. But when it all boils down, it's this is just taking a typical B block. This is for high school. In this year, with our bell schedule, how many minutes first semester and second semester in a B block class in our proposed schedule using like the actual dates for next year. So that's including all holidays and all sorts of weird things that get crossed off. how many minutes, the difference, and then how many classes that means in terms of 75-minute classes, which is how long our blocks are. So in the fall, the trade-off is 3.5 classes. And in the spring, it's not even a full class in terms of how the time shifts.
And the main reason for the spring being so different is winter activities already take time out.
Yeah.
But we had to do this research to in some ways, as someone mentioned the staff question, is we had to show the staff too, because with dual enrollment classes and AP classes and things like that have certain syllabus that has to be completed to meet the criteria for an outside group. We had to make sure that teachers were having ample time to do their work. That being said, we know that seat time is no longer something that's honored by the AOE, and that the proficiency of the standards is what the AOE is the set the standard for. So that's how graduation is determined. It's not set by seat time anymore. The old Carnegie units, if you will, were based entirely on minutes in the chair, and that's not what proficiency-based graduation is all about.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I was talking about that earlier meeting, I have the secret slides at the end.
All right.
All right.
Any other questions?
Anybody else?
Sam, Bob, great job.
Thank you, Sam.
That was
Yeah.
fantastic.
Great. I don't know. Are you the host again?
I am, but you have to hit stop share.
Stop sharing. Okay. I wasn't sure. I didn't want to.
There you
close the
go.
whole thing.
Well done. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for the questions.
Thank you for your enthusiasm.
I like how she
Is
presents.
there action that needs to be taken on the funding? Or
No, because,
you're just gonna figure it out?
yep. It's our responsibility to find that money.
Sweet.
Excellent.
For the
We kind of figured that you would just tell us to make it work anyway. So
That was gonna be my motion.
Tell them we're not going to China.
there you go.
Bill, Chinese. We're not going to China this year.
It's not on the agenda.
Yeah. Next time.
You had an opportunity to add that.
There you go.
I saw that one.
No, we're not.
No. All right, moving on to WCSU J.E.D.I, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And before I jump into that, it's part of our package, but I just wanted to read out again and remind folks that we actually made a statement as a board that was put into the paper, I believe by Chris Mays, who is here. But I'll read that statement, and it is: the West River Education District values all of our community members, no matter their backgrounds, abilities, or identities. While differences of opinions can be celebrated and debated, we condemn symbols of hate being displayed in our district, which is in direct opposition to the welcoming and inclusive nature of our community as a whole. So, I want to remind folks of that. That is our stance as a board. And now moving into the update.
Yeah, so I provided the board some details on the work we're currently doing, work that has been done since our last meeting, work that we are considering pursuing, and partnerships that we can develop and move forward with. But before I get into that, I would just like to add on to what Al shared from the administrators of West River District. That hate absolutely has no home here in the West River schools, that we will continue to work until every student feels included. We are committed to creating a durable, sustainable foundation for our inclusive and welcoming school environments. We will listen to each voice. We will strive to continually improve. We are committed to having the hard conversations, acknowledging, confronting, and responding to bias as we strive to build a community in which every member feels the same sense of belonging. I found that rewatching the meeting from April 25th that it was incumbent on the administrators and myself to make sure that we were very clear about the work that we have engaged in, the work that we will continue to engage in, and the work that we hope to continue to improve upon. So I just wanted to make sure I got that out there. On the document that the board has, and then I have copies here for anybody in the audience, I just wanted to highlight a couple things that we have done since our last meeting, and then I'll invite Mr. Tabachnik, Ms. Liskowski-Doak, or Mr. Roach if they want to highlight anything else that's on that sheet. But I just wanted to start that I want to thank Lindell Bowl for inviting me to a meeting with the Windham County NAACP president and herself. We met on Zoom. It was a very forthright and respectful and understanding meeting. Stefan, right? Stefan Gillum was very clear in the advocacy of the NAACP. We had a good conversation about the number one recommendation that the NAACP makes to schools is to hire an equity director so that there is a person that is fully responsible for the work that you see in your sheet, but having a person that is a grounding agent for not only the work, but for students to engage with. The NAACP has worked with schools in the past. They've specifically provided trainings on how to support teachers having difficult conversations with students when racial issues arise. So I feel like I've made an initial engagement with the Windham County NAACP, and I hope that that can be a continued partnership. So Lindell, I just want to thank you.
I'm jumping in, although I'm not a board member. I would really like to echo that. It was a really good conversation of clarity and respect and understanding and wanting to work together on a problem. We felt very connected to Mr. Anton and exactly what he's saying.
Well, thank you for making sure that that happened. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Also, after our last meeting, we met with our SU-wide Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion team. Our facilitators shared our meeting on the 25th and the input of the community, the input of the board. And we spent a lot of time thinking about how the J.E.D.I team could actually help support in an advisory and recommendation environment. And so we then followed up with that with myself and Mr. Tabachnik and Mr. Kermensky, the principal of Marlboro, with just the facilitators to talk even more specifically about Leland and Gray and how we could move the work forward in a more accelerated manner. And Bob and Scotty and the facilitators are meeting next week to be very specific about Leland and Gray. So I feel like we've heard from the community, we've heard from the board about the urgency and the acceleration of the work we'd already begun, but wanted to update the board on that. And now I'd just like to see if there's, if Scotty or Craig or Johanna, if you had anything you wanted to highlight on the sheet that we provided the board, just to flesh it out. And then before I get to you on that, I do have copies of the board for the board, the work that we'll be discussing next week with Leland and Gray. It's responding to hate and bias at school, a guide for administrators, counselors, and teachers that was recommended by our J.E.D.I facilitators from the Learning for Justice curriculum, which used to be called Teaching Tolerance, if you're familiar with that. So Scotty or Craig or Johanna, if anybody wants to highlight anything, you don't have to. It's all been provided in writing, but just wanted to give you an opportunity if you had something you wanted to share.
Sure.
Go ahead, Johanna.
I was waiting to see if the hand was going to come up. Yeah, I mean, it's all on here, but we did just complete a bullying prevention curriculum for the whole week last week in the middle school. So every day the students had activities and lessons from their teachers for up to 40 minutes per day about bullying prevention. And actually, if you walked in the front door on A level, if you go to the right when you walk in, you'll see there's a big banner on the wall with handprints and signs, and there's a lot of signs all around A level that the students made as part of like the culminating activity. So that was last week, and we had a presenter scheduled to come on Friday who speaks around the country about bullying and inclusion and celebrating diversity. And then the water pump broke, so we had to cancel that. And we had rescheduled it for this week. And as you know, illness has hit our building. So we decided it was not probably in our best interest to all gather in the gym. So we're actually looking to have him come in the fall at the start of the year and doing a similar week. I, of course, won't be here in the fall, but planning the same type of, bullying prevention inclusion week at the start of the school year, and the same presenter will come at the start of the year instead. So that's the most recent thing. The other stuff that's on here has to do with High Five, but we've talked about that. So if you have any questions, you can ask them.
Thank you, Joanne. Scotty, did you come off of your non-video so that you wanted to talk, or you just wanted us to?
I'm thinking a lot about the restorative practices that Marlboro got started years ago with, and the things that they've learned, the skills that they've learned that they're bringing to their school now in conversations with families and with children and with the staff, just make communicating a lot easier. And I think that if we could expand on our restorative practices, maybe down to the elementary level, that would be a real big plus for us. And I know that we're all very committed to this work, so I think that I can envision that happening. And I've reached out to some colleagues around the county, and we've got a lot of expertise in Windham County, and I would like to take advantage of that and try to expand down to the elementary level.
And then I'll just say that we plan to just continually update the board at your regular meetings on our progress, our work, our questions, our challenges. And as I said before, we really view this as an iterative process where we are all learning together and trying to improve each and every day. Just want to make sure that we are being transparent about what we're doing, what we're learning, what we're trying to get better at.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So I have
Any questions?
a few questions.
Absolutely.
So are you gonna go back to trying to use the restorative justice plan?
So-
Like when an incident happens?
Sure. So that is already part of the process here at Leland and Gray. I think what Scotty was trying to highlight is that could be an opportunity that we might want to even bring down to lower grades. But we have that in place at Leland and Gray, and we want to engage our facilitators to find out how can we improve upon that, how we can make that even more a part of our DNA.
Yeah, because, I think with some kids, like they think they're just goofing around and whatever, but I think when people actually see, like, you hurt me, like that really changes things for, the next time, like they're more thoughtful, like, I did this last time and I hurt their feelings. Do we no longer use a resource officer?
Since I have been here, we have not. We ever haven't employed a resource officer.
No,
We have.
We
It's been
have.
a while now.
Yeah. Is that something that?
Actually, there was a very recent study in Windham County about the effects of a resource officer on marginalized communities and how that can actually have a negative effect. So if that was something that we would explore, we would dive deep into the challenges that have existed in other situations, and we would have a very thoughtful presentation to the board about even making that consideration. But that is not something that is a top priority on our radar at this moment.
And so when we have guest speakers, where does that money come from to have them come?
So we budget money to have events for students, to have activities for students, we have administratively directed funds for those. So the board has been very consistent in making opportunities for students. And so we're not lacking in the ability to make sure that we have appropriate interaction for students in that manner.
Okay.
I think you were first, sir, and then I'll go to you.
It's Stan Noga from Brookline. I very much appreciate your efforts, your attitude, your approach, the self-reflection that's involved in part of that. It's very brave. And as a citizen, I'm feeling much more good about the scenario here at the school and the administration and what's happening. So thank you very much.
I would thank you for advocating for the values you believe in and making them known so that this becomes an iterative process as well. So right back at you.
Thank you. Adele.
Yeah, I just wanted to add very quickly to this lady's comments. I served on the advisory council for SROs to the Brattleboro School Board. We worked for a year and a half, really hard on evaluating. I think you know, with student surveys and with staff surveys and history take. It was 3 subcommittees, and we met regularly once a month for a year and a half, and just made to the board the recommendation that Brattleboro not rehire, but that we form a working liaison with the Brattleboro Police Department, have a person designated that knows the building and knows obviously the staff when we have an incident that needs police activity, so that we sort of have both ends of the stick. We hire more mental health professionals with the budget money that would go to an SRO, but we also work with Norma Hardy in the Brattleboro Police Department to designate a person that will be available in case of incidents that definitely need a police officer. That's what other districts are doing, and it's very successful. So I think we're on the right road with Brattleboro, and I sat on that for a year and a half, so I wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Thank you. Great discussion, and yeah, applaud the continued efforts.
No, we will keep you informed. And again, this is an iterative growth process that the long arc.
All right. Thank you. All right. So moving on to superintendent recommendation for Jamaica Village School teaching principal.
Yes, so I'm very excited to come before the board. Just as a history reminder, we had a half-time principal at Jamaica for 2 years, and this last year we did a pilot of splitting a principal at Newbrook and at Jamaica, and we're always looking to see if we can improve our service to our communities and our families within the budgetary constraints that the public so generously gives us. We have an opportunity that we have a teacher at Jamaica who is stepped up and is willing to enter themselves into a 11-month program to become a principal on their own investment using contractual available money that is in the master agreement to become a teaching principal. It would be similar to Wyndham, where you have a teaching principal. We are expecting 18 students at Jamaica next year, a teacher and a teaching principal. We currently stipend the principal who is split and a person on the ground, and so we would just not do that and stipend the teacher. I recommend this highly and strongly because it provides real intimate, focused service to the community of Jamaica and those students, as well as it doesn't kind of split the responsibilities and energies and actions of a principal at Newbrook. And it's, again, within our budgetary constraints. So I don't have any, I'll do that one and I'll do the teacher. So I would ask the board to allow me to go ahead and create a Jamaica Village School teaching principal for the 22-23 school year.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion? No? All right. Seeing none, let's start out in Zoom land. Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
And, we now have Mike. Mike, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
And am I missing
Nope,
anybody
you got
else? No? Okay. Drew?
Aye.
Crystal?
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Lindsay?
Aye.
And I will vote aye as well. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. And then the second part is just if we get, we're in the hiring season. And so as we start getting teachers through, we're not having another board meeting until June 8th. So I would like someone to make a motion to allow the board chair to sign letters of intent for teachers as they go through the hiring process. Again, they will fit within the budgetary constraints that have been approved by our citizens.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Discussion. All right, seeing none. Starting out on Zoom again. Joe, how do you vote?
Aye again.
Mike?
Aye.
And Sarah?
Aye.
Drew?
Aye.
Crystal?
Aye.
Aye as well. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm very excited for Jamaica in particular and Newbrook not having a split. I think it would be very good service to our communities.
Sounds like a great plan. All right. Moving on to public high school choice.
All right, so we were supposed to do this in February. We did not do it in February. I'm asking you to do it now. We have not rejected anybody that has asked. We have not turned anybody away. Our normal capacity is 20. We have had 1 come in. We have no students request to go out. So all I would like you to do is just to approve the public high school choice agreement for the 22-23 school year, with the caveat that we will extend any receiving students until the end of this school year to give them time. So if they wanted to come in up to that 20-person limit. So we've already passed the deadline. So I'd like to extend the deadline to the final day of school.
Just this 1 year.
Just this 1 year. We have to do this annually.
And we've only had 1. Who would like to make that motion?
I make that motion.
Thank you, Dana. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
And Crystal. Any discussion? All right, seeing none. Mike, how do you vote?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Drew?
Aye.
Crystal?
Aye.
Dana? Lindsay? And I vote aye as well. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, that completes our new business. Moving on to old business. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of April 25th, 2022.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
There you go. You have it.
Crystal,
all you.
Crystal has a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Moving out to Zoom. Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Drew?
Aye.
Crystal?
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Lindsay?
Aye.
Me? All those in, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Sure you don't have any stuff. 21C after-school grant update.
So after our last meeting, we learned at our last meeting, we did not get the 21C grant application, but we did direct our representatives from the West River to ask the WCSU for the sustainability funds to be able to be accessed for an after-school program for this year. WCSU saw no reason not to give the contributions since 2014 of the West River District combined back to the West River District. So $180,000 will be available to $45,000 for a summer plan and $135,000 for a year-long plan. Our director, Melissa White, is preparing that plan right now. I will ask her to come on the June 8th meeting to share with the board what that will look like. In a weird way, we get a lot more freedom when we don't have to use federal dollars and follow that federal thing, federal path. Kind of like Drew's question earlier about using funds that we haven't budgeted locally. We hope to be able to look in December and be able to give an evidence-based update about what it would look like to run a locally funded after-school program, what it would look like if we applied for the 21C, and which one might be better. So we'll actually have 4 months of data that will show what it looks like when we do it locally versus what it looks like when we do it through the program. The details will be shared with you all on June 8th, but there is some nice flexibility, especially with our long-term planning. Thoughts about gathering the kids in a more cohesive manner that we're exploring to see if that is maybe could be longer, could be more cost effective, and could run for more days. So Melissa will come on June 8th and present that to the board. But the big update is we will have after school programming, and really appreciate the thoughtful planning. I wasn't around in 2014. I don't know who was on the board in 2014, but good job.
True.
Having a sustainability plan.
That Joe was foresight we had.
Very good foresight.
Joe was definitely on the board.
Joe was on the
So
board.
yes, we just want to make sure that,
Just in 2014.
we want to make sure that parents know that there will be a after-school program for the 22-23 school year.
When can we apply for those funds again? I think
We will fill it out in the fall, and I believe it's February 1st is the deadline.
Great. All right. Thank you. That's great news.
Yes, it was great.
Fantastic. Principal reports. If principals would like to give a kind of a brief synopsis of what's going on in each school, that'd be great. Maybe a couple minutes. Go ahead, Scotty.
You know, I just, for my report, I had just gotten back from J.E.D.I, and I just wanted, the board and the public to be aware of what an amazing experience J.E.D.I is for all of our fifth graders around the West River Education District. I love going there, and I love seeing the kids. Every single kid thrives there, and it's just an amazing experience. And I just wanted to thank you and the taxpayers because I think it's a really fundamental part of our programming. And now that the sixth graders are no longer at the elementaries, it's a really nice bookend to the elementary experience, and it's their first experience with the people that they will graduate with from Leland and Gray, almost all of them. There are some kids that are from, like I guess, Dover and Wardsboro that might go over the hill. But I just wanted to say thank you to you folks and just explain a little bit about what the days are like there, because it's a really rich experience.
Thanks, Scotty. Appreciate it. Craig.
Yeah, it was nice these last few weeks to get parents back in the building. It was great to have kids do different varieties of enrichment, have their parents in. And so we had a puppet performance. We had Sandglass Theater from Putney come in and lead a week-long residence with us. That the final culmination was a play, which we filled our very tiny but yet still kind of big multi-purpose room with parents. And then a couple of days later, we had parents in for a student-parent luncheon. And as I was outside on the porch greeting parents and sort of like letting them know their plans, I overheard one parent say, it's so nice to be in schools again. We haven't been in for 2 years, and we've been in 2 times in less than a week. And so there was this really nice, refreshing moment of parents smiling, seeing everybody, meeting each other's classmates, parents again. It was just really nice. So those events are happening. We have another performance coming up on the 9th and 10th, where we're having a drumming residency. Come on in. And then we just planned our step up day for June 1st, and our teachers worked that on Monday. So we're just continuing to build community back up again and get people in the building and get people seeing each other. And that's fantastic.
Thanks, Greg. Bob, if you're with us.
Barely. So you guys heard quite a bit from me earlier, so I won't say a whole lot, but I did want to just highlight what Johanna was mentioning about moving the speaker because of sickness. We had, now I'm obviously not sick, but we had any number of days between 5 and 10 staff members out. Yesterday we had a third of our high school out. Today was slightly better, but not much. and tomorrow we're going to be really struggling with, we don't have the sub coverage to cover. So we're going to have kids, classes are going to be in the Dutton gym, certain classes, but we don't have sub coverage. And we're going to have kids in the Dutton gym with, a sub, but multiple classes put together, which will certainly mean that it'll be not as ideal of a learning environment, but that's just to stay open and keep running. So just wanted you guys to be aware of that. It's been a very tough week for the sickness and the COVID and flu symptoms, which is what I have. It's just, it's going around.
Appreciate that, Bob. Hope everybody feels better.
Thank you. The other thing I wanted to mention came up in a conversation I had in our long-term planning task force this afternoon. I was asked about hiring and the impact of the board's long-term planning and discussions around the high school closing, if that has an impact on staffing. And I reported to them, and I'll tell you the same thing. I did offer a position to a candidate just yesterday who lives in the community and has been following the story, and eventually was accepted the position, but had a lot of questions for me first about what I thought was the long-term viability of the school and whether the board was going to try to close it and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to relay that to you guys, that as long as that's something we're continuing to talk about, that it does have an impact on staffing and hiring. And I just wanted you guys to hear there was a live story just from yesterday. So
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate that. All right. Any questions or comments? Okay, moving on.
So I provided the board with a superintendent's report. Just the thing I just want to highlight is that the weighting study has passed both the House and the Senate. When it went from the House back to the Senate just concurred. They didn't even ask for a committee of conference, which is great. It has not been signed yet by Governor Scott, but the votes were overwhelming, so I don't see any reason why he would want to veto it, but if he did, I think the override is there. The details are, it will start in FY25, so it will not be in our next budget planning. It'll be the year after that. In a way, that's helpful because we'll actually know exactly what the impact will be, because they'll be doing modeling off of 21, 22, and 23. And at our last model, which was 18, 19, and 20, it was anywhere from 20 to 30 cents. So I don't know what it'll be until they run those numbers, probably not till the fall, but it will happen in one fell swoop. So in FY25, it gets implemented completely. Basically what happens is that West River District will just have more equalized pupils. You'll just end up getting more equalized pupils. But it's not, I want to be honest, it is not going to give you millions of dollars. And you got 2 more years of increases of everything else that increases every year. So it's not the saving grace. It's not, it's going to benefit the community, but it's going to make up for a system that was unfair. But the long-term planning work that the West River is engaging in is absolutely critical to the future. And the weighting of the implementation of the weights does not change that necessity. Just wanted to, from my perspective, I just wanted to emphasize that. It's a good thing, but it doesn't change all the work that you guys are on. That's what I got for you.
Totally agree. Thanks, Bill. But it is great news.
Oh, it's fantastic
30
news.
cents, I mean,
No, it's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Resetting after 25 years of complete
Absolutely.
inequity, that's
Yes.
phenomenal. All right, moving on to approve the financials. And Dana,
Yeah, I have the number, Joe.
So do I tonight.
Well, why don't you go and spit it out?
All right. So I'll make a motion to approve the check date, the pay orders, check dates 5/6/22 on 5/6/22 in the amount of $58,522.40.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All right, seeing none. We'll start with you, Joe. How do you vote?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye. Sarah.
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Drew?
Aye.
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 People are very enthusiastic.
Aye.
There you go, Lindsay. And I vote aye as well. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, long-term planning update. Let's start with elementary.
Scotty?
Did he leave? No.
Are you there?
Oh, there it is.
Hey, you guys. We've been meeting once a week on Mondays from 4 to 5 in the Newbrook Library. And we've had some really dedicated people coming, which has been great. And we've had a lot of varied opinions and considerations. And we've been going through first, Craig and I are leading us through this document where we're going to create a decision-making document for you folks to use when making this hard decision. And so we're trying to gather as many considerations as we can. We're trying to think of the pros and the cons of, first we went through the 3 buildings and the sites. And now we're on to, I think we have 6 different proposals or ways to consider moving forward from our current situation. And so we're trying to get on paper as much as we possibly can. And we've got this open document that we're all typing into. I think we're being really efficient. I think that we're going to get as much down as we can. I'm going to edit at the end and try to make it easy to read and kind of highlight things and stuff like that. And just try to make it easier for the public and for the board to consume. Because it is a lot. There's a lot of meeting time and a lot of thought has gone into it. But Leanne and Lindsay and I have been there, I think, almost every week. And it's been. I missed one week because I was at Q8, and Craig's been there every week, and it's been really great. And I just want to say that I think that we're going to come up with the information you guys need to make a good choice.
Linz, anything to add?
No, I think you got it. It's a lot of discussion. I don't think that our goal as a committee is not to necessarily come to you with one specific choice, because there is so much conversation involved. And it seems unlikely that in such a short amount of time that we could come up with a true consensus. And that being said, it's still the board's job. So we're trying to put together basically as much information cohesively as possible with all the different viewpoints in a way that I hopefully will make it at least pretty easily to digest what the community and the group is feeling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Makes a lot of sense.
Makes more sense.
Oh.
You guys seeing a lot of community at these meetings?
We have actually had more than we expected, more than we initially were looking for 2 community members for each committee, and we've seen more than that. It hasn't been quite as consistent with, obviously the board members have been a little bit more consistent in attending than each community member, but there's been a pretty good range, and also lots of staff. So, and parents and not parents, community members that don't have kids in the school. It's been a really good mix.
Was it based on location? Like it was
There's
easier
people
for
from
moving
every
committees?
town. There's people from every town that are there.
That's great.
There's,
Very diversified.
yeah, it's, I mean, a really diverse group. There's some of everybody.
You guys holding all your meetings in Newfane?
All our meetings are in Newfane from 4 to 5. It's real hard to get a big group of people together.
Just wondering whether for community access, would it make sense to
move
maybe
them?
move one to the north so that people in the northern community may feel easier access?
Scotty, do you have thoughts about that? We have had
You talked to the
Jamaica.
principal in Jamaica.
We do have, there is a Zoom option. So if someone can't come, like it really did, it had a lot to do with when school let out, like and when we have our staff meetings, it was hard to find a time that we could all meet. I think that the site could be moved, but what I wonder is there anyone out there who is not getting access because of the site and that they don't have Zoom access? I just wonder. I'm not sure if that would change things. We're getting a lot of teachers, some of whom are going home from Townsend to South, some of whom are teachers at Newbrook. Miss Deuce has come every week from Jamaica. It's hard to tell.
We have had fairly consistent people from Jamaica as well, just community members. So it has been represented.
Okay, good questions. Anything else? All right, moving on to high school.
I don't know if Crystal wants to speak to this, or Drew came today and talk a little bit where we're at, or do you want me to fill people in?
No, I can do it. You don't feel well. So yeah, we had another meeting today. Pretty productive. We're gonna put together a theme next week of all the different things we offer. We're gonna kind of do like people's emotions on one side regarding it, and like the facts on the other side. I reached out to Black River, who did close their high school, and I've gotten some really good feedback. So I'm hoping by June 8th that I'll have like a lot of feedback, because they're the only school that has ever closed their high school. And the impact it's pretty heartbreaking. So yeah, we're just, compiling all the different information, what travel will look like for people, the equity of closing our school, with poverty levels and such. So.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Crystal.
Just a note that the meeting for today was listed as a Zoom only option on the calendar. So I don't know who keeps the calendar, but we may want to make sure that that's accurate, that there is an in-person location. Co-curriculars. Just so that.
You're talking about the high school co-curricular calendar listed as Zoom only?
Yeah.
I'll fix that. Sorry.
I almost left.
My wife gave me a heads up it was Zoom only, and he goes, I don't think it is.
There are other people here. I'm just going to put out there, I think it's really important that we, like Bob said, we have been threatening the staff of Leland and Gray with closing the school for, I don't even know how many years.
Since I've been here.
This must be the 5th time I've been through this discussion as a board member, and we need to stop. So we need to come up with a long-term plan and a solution in order to maintain and attract the staff that we want to teach our kids. I was and continue to be extremely frustrated with the board's desire to start this process again, and I would ask that we not do this again. We need to get to the end of this and create stability in our district, because that's what our teachers, that's what our staff, and certainly that's what our students need. So I really hope that when we get to the end of this, it doesn't turn into another study. We're currently looking at information that I know as a board member I've looked at least a half a dozen times. So it's time for us to make a decision and a commitment to what our education system is going to look like. Because this is torture. Every year we go through the same thing. Are we open? Are we closed? Are we open? Are we closed? we're not doing our staff or our students any service at all this way.
I would agree, Drew. And I think that hopefully part of what you recommend would be that we just completely take that off the table and that we are going to have a pre-K through 12 here. Yeah. So,
We need to settle the question fast.
yes.
That's settled.
Settle it. Yeah.
Settle it.
Have you guys had student involvement yet?
Yeah.
Peter.
Peter?
Hey.
I've been very minimal. I have unfortunately been, the second meeting I was able to attend and I thought it was Zoom only, so, but unfortunately today I had an eye appointment and, the first meeting I was at a track meet. So I've been listening in mainly. Today I barely caught half. So I would love for there to be more student involvement because I have a busy schedule and it is not a great time for me. It is quite possibly the worst time actually.
But Peter, you don't have SBACs, you don't have SATs. What? Come on, you have your graduation, that's it.
Oh, trust me. So more student involvement would be great because I am bare minimum right now, unfortunately.
Is that something we should ask our student board members to try to help us with?
I was gonna say, student
We've
council.
also, Grace attended one, she's in middle school. But it is true, they're all doing their sports and stuff, so it is difficult for them to get there at that time.
I wonder if there's any way, and this may not even be possible, but if there's any way to maybe have them weigh in after the fact, that they could just sort of like have a rundown of here's the things we discussed. Do you have any points that we missed that were big things that we didn't think about? Or it doesn't even necessarily have to be sitting in the meeting when it's happening.
Or maybe
The other thing that I could throw out there is I could engage the student council when we get a draft of a presentation and engage with them in the presentation and get feedback before we present to you guys as well. That could be another avenue.
I like that.
That's a great idea.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Bob, they're highly supportive of that idea.
Very.
And I also just want to mention that I've talked to a lot of parents that will have students coming to Leland and Gray who are also very concerned. They're like, we don't want to send our kids to a school and then have them find out in 11th grade, choose Brattleboro, Green Mountain. So there's that side of it too. So
Back to Drew's point, let's just dispel that and it's on the table.
strongly agree that
decision.
we gotta.
Okay.
So, just, Al, can I just ask a clarifying question? I hear you guys saying, let's just dispel that. Are you saying that right now, or are you saying that you still want to hear the presentation on the 6th before making that decision?
If we want to take a vote right now to dispel that,
I think it's important that we hear the presentation first.
Yeah. Let's do that.
But in all fairness, this board has made that vote many times. So it needs to actually mean something this time and not only until next budget cycle. Because that's what it's been every time we've done it before.
Agreed.
When it comes time, I'm going to say we make the motion and mean it this time.
No take backs.
We sign it in blood. Yeah.
Drop the blood in.
And then I'll officially retire.
Be a blood oath.
So, all right. Anyway, I know we want to move on, but you're making me think about it, right? So every year there's a new board, right? So new boards can make new decisions, but if we codify it and make it part of our articles, that means something. That's
New word
Well,
in my vocabulary.
I know how
It's just
to change your articles because we have to do that in River Valley, so.
I mean, that's
The law work's already been done. That is a way to codify.
that's long-standing.
Yeah.
So,
My vocabulary.
yeah.
All right, electric bus.
Yes.
Yes.
We got Mr. Pavis.
Paul, how are you?
Hey,
Hey, I know we talked on the phone, and just to kind of, so about the electric bus task force request.
yes,
We had talked about, and if the rest of the board would agree, I think since you're heavily invested in it, make sense if you were to lead the task force, in which you would have access to anything that you would need from the office, WCSU.
Okay.
And you're more intimately involved than any of the rest of us. So I don't know what the rest of the board thinks about that, but something that I talked with Paul about. And
What is
that
the
makes sense.
goal of the task force? So what are we tasking the task force to do on our behalf?
I asked Mr. Pavis to clarify.
Yeah, Paul, you want to illuminate?
What the West River, good question, Drew. What the West River group was hoping that the task force would have an opportunity to explore the possibility of electric buses, but also have information related to finances and, what sort of money is available now, how receptive would the community be to, seek grants or other ways of financing electric school buses. We would see the task force as trying to work with West River Transportation and find out what their position is on that and see how or if that we could integrate their expertise or their equipment, and try to keep the operating of the electric school buses local. And I think that, the intent of bringing it to the board was that from an interest of governorship, maybe some board members would like to join the task force too, to bring a perspective from some of the other towns. And so we didn't really have in mind like what would be the ideal number for the people on the task force. I see Mike's video is on. He would probably be interested in being part of the task force. But I think to really make it a cooperative venture, we would like to try to get either members of the board or members of the public, maybe some people who are there now or, who are listening through Zoom, to complete the task force. So does that answer your question, Drew?
So you're studying at this point?
Sorry?
Gathering information?
I'm having a little trouble hearing from this point.
You're looking to just gather information at this point?
Yes. And I guess to gather information, I'll let Mike add to that, to gather information with the idea of setting up a plan. So the idea would be to, if we did this now, maybe in 5 years, we could have electric school buses. I'm just picking that time frame randomly. That's just an idea. But it's not only to gather information, but to gather information with the idea of proposing a plan to the board, and see if they would like to go ahead with it. So it would have a point to the gathering or to the research. Mike, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's, start with a plan, which the task force would, develop knowledge about how other school districts have done it. We're not the first, so not up for reinventing the wheel, but also to just tailor it to our own needs. Once the plan is developed and we know which direction we want to go in, we could then develop funding and pursue granting and then bring it to the community as an idea. That's how I see it, as like an ABC process. But it takes involvement of more than just me and Paul.
So
No, that makes sense. I mean,
I have a question.
go ahead, Chris.
Don't we use an outside company for busing?
We do. West River.
We don't do our own busing. We don't have our own bus drivers.
Correct.
Wouldn't they work with that bus company? I'm just.
Nope.
Those are the critical questions that I think the
Just
task force
because-
would need to
Yeah.
answer.
I mean, we wouldn't do our own buses. We have a lot of trouble staffing our schools. So I don't think we'd take on bus drivers. So I'm just kind of curious as to why we don't have the bus company here.
If I could jump in on that. We have tried to contact West River Transportation to find out their thoughts on electric school buses, and it hasn't been successful. But you raise a good point about the fact that the district does not own the school buses. However, the district does pay for the gas for the buses. So they have some investment, they have some, what they say, skin in the game, as far as how much money is used to transport the students. So I think to answer the question, right, you don't have bus drivers and it's hard to get staffing for school. And as Mike said, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're trying to work with what we have, but are we still on?
Yeah.
Okay. Trying to work with the system that we have and try to make it cleaner, less expensive, more environmentally sustainable. So I think that's the goal. Your question is one of the challenges that the task force, how can we work around, the district not owning the buses? I will say, and Mike has found this out, that there are several school districts that do own the buses. They have taken on that responsibility of transporting students in an environmentally sensitive and cost-efficient manner. So that is something that they have done. Not that we have to do that, or this district has to do that, but it can be done. That's what I'm saying.
Only when we get to the table will we realize the opportunities as we go forward. And we can't realize all those opportunities right now. But I'm confident there are opportunities that will make that are business viable, and also a better opportunity for the transportation of the children and the cost to the district.
And I definitely appreciate and respect everything that you're saying. And I agree, but I also think, we have to figure out how we're going to get the bus company involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, that is, I think that would be an item on the task force agenda.
Correct to the issue. Go ahead.
I would say that, as with kind of any proposal that somebody from the community might have, that I'm all for hearing something. I think that I know I personally feel pretty maxed out as a board member, and I believe that is probably the case for more than just myself. With all of our additional long-term planning work that's happening, and add committees on top of that, and it's crazy. That being said, I do think it's a worthy process to gather information and come up with a proposal. And I would be happy to hear a proposal. I just can't be on that committee that does it.
It's fair, Lindsay. I think I got Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
So is this a board task force, or is this more a community task force that then has board representation? Do we actually have ownership of this? Because if we do, then we would have to direct the charge and sort of oversee it. I think the way this is being laid out, it makes more sense to me that this is sort of a community citizen task force that's asking for board representation. Is that how this is actually going to be structured?
Joe, I think that's exactly it. Kind of like we did with the long-term planning, and we had Fiona and Luella doing the community, and then as you say, having board involvement. And that's kind of how I laid it out with Paul, which, if Paul or Mike were to lead the task force and then tap into us, and then also tap into the resources that we have in the office to get that financial information or anything else that the task force would need.
Okay, well.
After the clarification, I hope I don't regret volunteering, but I'll be one of the board representatives on this task force.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. So, Paul, will you be leading that task force?
I would love to lead it. Yes, I would definitely accept that. I'd be honored, and I appreciate the interest and the recommendation. Sure.
All right, fantastic. Do we believe we need a motion to, no?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Have at it.
What, you gonna leave me out here all alone?
That'd be great. Yeah, okay, so it sounds like phase A, studying and gathering information with the hopes of having a plan. Great. Excellent.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Joe.
Would you like to send?
Thanks, Joe. My pleasure.
Yeah. Okay. We're all good. All right. Thank you very much. I think that concludes our old business. So let's flip to page 2.
Okay, so you can see that our executive session has been updated. I want to thank Mr. Noga, right? Yes. Okay. Shared some really high-quality recommendations from the Vermont cities, leagues, and towns. I took those recommendations and built them into the executive session procedure. It just makes it nice and clear and concise and helpful for the public. And I want to thank you for. It was new learning for me, so I appreciate increasing my own skills. So thank you very much. So if you read this, you need to make these as 2 separate motions. I tried to lay it out as easy as possible. You read the bold, and read the 3 below, and read the bold, and read the 3 below. Pause. Okay.
For dramatic effect.
All right. And vote on that, and then do the second one. Is there anybody understand it enough to read it?
Is it 3 motions, you say?
2.
So you read the bold and you pick the one that applies.
No, all the things.
Just pick all of them?
No.
Yes, I got it then.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
I move to find that premature general public knowledge regarding confidential attorney-client privilege would put the board at a substantial disadvantage because disclosing privileged legal advice negates the ability for the board to appropriately consider the legal advice. And that's the first motion.
Oh, you're going to do 4 motions? Okay, that's fine.
No, that's just one, right?
Well,
And the second one would be to move to the board to enter executive session under Title I for the confidentiality attorney-client privilege.
No.
No?
Just read it as a group.
Yeah, everything.
The whole thing?
Yes.
All right, I move to find that premature general public knowledge regarding confidential attorney-client privilege, labor relation agreements with employees, the appointment or evaluation of public officers or employees would put the board at substantial disadvantage because disclosing privileged legal advice negates the ability for the board to appropriately consider the legal advice. The board's risks disclosing this negotiation strategy if the proposed contract terms are disclosed to the public, disclosing contract negotiations.
Stop.
Good.
That's a motion.
And I'll second it.
Thank you, Dan.
Can you repeat it?
Yeah, I can.
Any discussion? Seeing none. I'll start in Zoom land. Joe, how do you vote?
Aye. It doesn't make sense to me that we moved for all those different reasons to go in because we're not talking about all those things, but
Yes, we have 3 separate issues we're talking about.
Yep. Mike?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Drew?
Aye.
Crystal?
Aye.
Aye.
Lindsay? Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
All right.
Okay.
Now I'll make a motion for the board to enter executive session under Title I, Section 313 of the Vermont Statutes for labor relations agreements with employees.
You only have to read, you don't have to read the ayes.
Excellent.
That's just for the
Appointment,
public.
or employment or evaluation of public officer or employee, confidential attorney-client communications.
Drew, you have to read
The 313.
313, A in parentheses, 1.
You just don't have to read the I in print.
313A1
Good.
in each of those sections.
Well, no,
No,
E is
one's
The
A3.
other one's A3.
You want me to start over?
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
All right, I'll make a motion for the board to enter
Just read
executive
it all.
session under Title I, Section 313 of the Vermont Statutes for labor relations agreements with employees, 313A1, the appointment of or employment or evaluation of public officer or employee, 313A3, confidential attorney-client communications, 313A1.
Second.
Second up.
Lindsay seconds it. Any discussion?
Ouch.
All right. Yes, my head hurts. Okay. We need some feedback going on here.
All right, so you're going to stop recording.
Well, hold on, time out.
No, we gotta say yes.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Joe?
aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Drew?
Aye.
Kristen?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. You're now in executive session.
Okay, I don't have anybody in the waiting room. You guys have fallen out of executive session. Go.
Legally?
Okay. Here we are. Okay, number 1, labor relations agreements with employees, 313A1. We have no action. The appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee. I'm going to make a motion on this. I make a motion to allow the superintendent to appoint an interim principal to serve the West River Education District at Townsend Elementary for the 2022-2023 school year. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I have none. Anybody else? No? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. We'll start with you, Joe. How do you vote?
Aye. Thank you.
Mike?
Aye.
Sarah? Didn't catch it. I'm sorry, Sarah, didn't hear it?
I said aye.
No, not you. Sorry, not you. Sarah?
Give a thumbs up.
Or yeah, some indication. There we go. All right, 2 thumbs up. All right, very good. Got it. Thanks, Eric.
You need broadband.
Kristen.
Aye.
Aye.
And myself as well. Motion carries unanimously.
To get that to the minutes. Okay, thank you.
Okay. On to the final parent request for tuition. Confidential attorney-client communications 313A1. Do we have a motion on the parent request? Okay, seeing none. I will craft a letter letting the family know that the board considered the request